All right, cool. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, today, obviously, as you saw on the language objective, determining the central idea of a nonfiction text, we're going back to social studies a little bit and talking about conquistadors. You guys remember them?
Yeah.
Like the Spanish explorers that were like soldiers and everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, like we've done with Miss Meaton in the past, we are going to start with the words. So I'm going to give you guys a couple words here. And like I said, also, we're going to try something a little different. This is called like a word web with the words, instead of just simply defining them and discussing them. So the first word that I wanted us to talk about was this one here. Generation. Has anybody ever heard that term before? Yeah, a couple of you? Anybody care to share what it might mean?
We're a generation. Everyone who's in 6th grade or 12 or 11 is a generation.
Everyone who's 11 or 12 years old, everyone who's in 6th grade is like part of a generation. Yeah, absolutely. So it has to do with what?
The time you were born.
Time you were born. What I'm doing is just writing down like a web, like a chart here, words that we would associate with it. We're not actually going to define it, but like we're going to get like a pretty good idea of what it means. So when you were born, it determines what else? Like you said 11 and 12, what is that called? Age, absolutely. Thoughts? No? Diane?
Era.
Era, yeah, absolutely. For example, like I'm from a different era than you guys are, right? Like I'm from a different generation than you are. What makes that different? Okay, when you're born, your age, the era that you're born in, anything else we can add to that? Yeah, Isaiah?
Decade?
Decades, sure, yeah. Absolutely, right? So generation has to go along with age. It has to go along with when they were born. So if there are different generations, it means what? Put it together. Tank?
Isn't there a name for the generations? Like, isn't there one? Is like you're born in like the 70s? It's called like Generation X.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you've heard of that. Like Generation X. Some of them are now called like millennials. I think technically I'm a millennial because I, went through like the 1990s and into 2000s and everything. Yeah. Or are you guys the millennials now? I don't even know. I don't think we're in the same generation. Who knows? But we get the idea, right? So when we come across like generation and they're talking about ages, they're talking about different ages, different families, different, characteristics of those people. All right, the other word that we have immunity. Anybody ever heard of this term before? What does it mean, Isaiah?
Sometimes like you get shots when you're a kid, so you're immune to like chicken pox or something.
Okay, so you're immune to chicken pox. How else could we say that without using the actual term here?
You don't get the disease or something.
Okay, no disease, sure. I like it. Good. Other synonyms, other ideas? Back to Tank.
Being able to like resist against like a disease.
Resist something. Again, like resist disease. So another word for disease is like sickness, right? Or being ill, as opposed to being fresh, right? Any other thoughts? Immunity. I'm sure you've heard it before. Interesting. Okay, cool. But we've got a good idea here. All right, so these are the words that we're going to come across. Now, if you remember, with Miss Meaton, we had really focused on kind of modeling some of that teaching, so we're going to go back to that. Do you guys see how the first part of the article just goes along with the title? You can see the nice picture there, and then there's a couple of paragraphs. So, in order to determine the central idea, what I'm really looking for are some pretty specific details. And in order to figure those out, I have to obviously interact with the text, right? We've all done that before, we've practiced that. So for this first part here, you just get to watch and listen. I'm going to go through, try and make it brief for you, because we've all done it before. But interacting with the text, annotating, taking some really good ideas, and fully understanding, like I can put this first passage here together and figure out, okay, what's this all about? I'm going to take those ideas, those central ideas, put them all together to be able to summarize them at the end of this reading. Let's see if I can. Good. Okay. So, Moctezuma was a ruler of the Aztecs in Mexico. Follow along with me. He was the unluckiest of kings. Other Aztec rulers had faced setbacks, but it was different for Moctezuma. He oversaw the ruin of the last great Central American empire. Interesting. Okay. So, as I look at this, I can take pretty much one simple main idea out of this entire passage here. I'll write it over here. Moctezuma is the last ruler of the Aztecs. Okay? Yeah, unluckiest of the kings. That kind of doesn't bode well, does it? He faced a foreign army from across the sea. Its leader was Hernan Cortez of Spain. Cortez was as intelligent as Montezuma was himself. Okay, now notice this says Montezuma, this one is Moctezuma. Same guy, different spellings. Why? If you could tell me, I would appreciate it. In the end, Cortez and his army conquered the Aztecs. Well, if I had kind of an idea up here of Moctezuma was the last ruler of the Aztecs, I think it would be a pretty good idea if I talked about the opposing side, the other side, right? So over here, I can say Cortez was the leader of the Spaniards. What do you think Spaniards means, Isaiah?
Spanish.
The Spanish, the people from Spain, exactly. After Christopher Columbus's voyage to North America in 1492, expeditions, or, explorers, right, swarmed into the Aztec territory in present-day Mexico. They came in search of gold. And that actually ties in to what we were learning about in social studies, right? Like, they were kind of mercenaries. They were soldiers for hire. They were there for glory, for fame, and for wealth, right? They wanted that money. Within a generation, America's ancient cultures were crushed. Well, there's our word. So, based on what we've talked about here, generation, decades, era, age, when you were born, within a generation, America's ancient cultures were crushed. Now, I'm going to turn it back to you guys here. Okay? How long did that take? It was within a generation. So I'm a generation, and you're part of a generation. Are we part of the same generation?
No.
Not necessarily. Did this take 1,000,000 years?
No.
No, kind of the opposite, right? Right, that's what I'm thinking. It did not take long at all. Not long.
Same century.
Yeah, in the same century, maybe a couple decades apart, but not too much, right? Not too much at all. Yeah. Within a generation, America's ancient cultures were crushed. Both the Aztecs and Incas, so that's another tribe, another group of Native Americans, quickly collapsed. The Incas lived in South America. Historians have suggested many causes for this fast defeat. All right? So, for me, when I look at all of this and I'm trying to piece together one central idea, I'll write it in red and I'll write it down here where we can see it. Central idea, CI. And this is something else that you guys can write down. I like that you're following along with me. You're writing it down. Good. Okay, we've got Moctezuma or Montezuma ruling the Aztecs. We've got Cortez as the leader of the Spaniards, and he's obviously leading mercenaries right there in search of gold. we've got these great empires here that are defeated. If I'm going to put that all together, if I'm going to put those details together into a central idea for this first part of the passage here, I'm going to say something maybe along the lines of, let's see if I wrote it down. So we've got the Aztecs and we've got the Spanish. And they were both pretty great empires. Who won when they clashed? They're already spoiling it here, right? America's ancient cultures were crushed. That's not a good thing in war, is it?
No.
No, so who won? Peter, who won? Was it Cortez and the Spaniards? Or was it Moctezuma and the Aztecs who were crushed?
It was the Spaniards.
Spaniards, Cortez, yeah. Okay, central idea, excuse me. So the Aztecs and the Spanish had great civilizations. Okay, we want to say both of them were big, they were powerful for what they were. But when they faced each other, like you guys said, like you helped, who won? Spanish. Spanish won. Now, did they say there was like just one reason why they won? Was it because of the gold they won? No. No, thank you. Yeah. No, I'm thinking they won for a number of reasons. No, I understand. You know, I wrote that a little bit in freehand. It's not the best grammar, but it gives us that central idea of these 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs here. Take a minute to write that down. Yeah, Umo. Yeah, you can. Any other questions on the central idea here? See, we're putting it all together. We've got the Aztecs, we've got the Spanish. They face off against each other. What happens? Spanish win. Why? Don't know yet. But there's a number of reasons. That's why we're going to find out. Setting a purpose for our reading. Can I scroll on? Do we all have it written down? Yeah? We're good? Okay. This is one of my favorite parts here. Now it's all wrong. Erase these annotations. All right, so for this next section, you guys get to help me out. You guys get to help me annotate with your ideas. So focus up, listen close, and we'll work together. The Spanish army had more resources and weapons. Once again, look back at that last central idea. The last thing we wrote down in that central idea was they won for a number of reasons. Piece that together with the title, or I should say subtitle, of this section here. Spanish army had more resources and weapons. Do you think we're going to learn about one of the reasons why they won? I agree, Maya. Yes, we are. Very much so. All right, let's read. The Spanish army had not been defeated for 150 years. That's kind of impressive. Spaniards had cannons, swords, and guns that terrified the American tribes. Horses, which the Aztecs had never seen, gave the Spaniards greater mobility. Against all of this, the Aztecs' main weapons were wooden clubs studded with glass-like rocks. Anything we can take away from that first paragraph there? I think there's some kind of important information. Let's go to compare and contrast. What kind of weapons and I'll underline them. You tell me what to underline. What kind of weapons did the Spanish have? Peter, give me one.
Guns.
Guns. What else did they have? Danny?
Swords.
Swords. Brandon?
Cannons.
Cannons. Anything else the Spaniards had which seems like it would be an advantage? Take a close look. There's something else in there. Vanessa? That's what the Spanish have? Check again. Anessa?
Horses.
Horses. Now, what I like about this is that the author actually tells us right there why horses are an advantage. The Aztecs had never seen, gave the Spaniards greater mobility. We've talked about mobility before. They could just move faster. Okay. Now let's compare that with the weapons the Aztecs had. Aztecs' main weapons, Vanessa, like you said, wooden clubs, and they were studded with glass-like rocks. So, we all know glass, like a shard of it, is pretty sharp. So, it's not like they were going to war with nothing, but when the Spanish came in and they had like armor, it's kind of one-sided, wouldn't you agree? Plus, with guns and cannons, do you think the Aztecs even got close to use those wooden clubs? No, it was a little one-sided. Yeah. Danny, you may. Yeah. Wars were religious practices to the Aztecs. One main goal was to capture prisoners for sacrifice to the gods. During the Battle of Tenochtitlan, which is now Mexico City, Spanish conquistadors watched from a distance as Aztecs killed their prisoners. Spaniards killed Aztec leaders whenever they could. So for me, taking the idea out of this, I'm thinking this is just getting pretty gruesome. It's getting a little bloody, and both sides are really doing some violent things, right? It's very aggressive right now. Any ideas or thoughts here in terms of main details? In this paragraph, we talked about some of the weapons and everything that was used for both sides. Anything we can take away here? No? All right, let's keep on going. We'll see if we can figure out more. The Aztecs had allies, but many native groups represented the Aztec rule because they were forced. Did I say represented?
Yeah.
Resented. That makes it a big difference. My bad.